A very good afternoon to all of you. I hope all of you are staying safe and healthy wherever it is you are. And very warm welcome to all of you on this FB Live session of ours. And today I'm going to talk about how to overcome stage fright. Now, here, first of all, we need to understand what is stage fright. Please note, stage fright is not merely limited to fear of public speaking, but it is the fear of being on stage. Fear when you are the cynosure of everyone's eyes. Fear when other people are watching you. And therefore, what I'm trying to do and what I'm going to do is I'll divide it into three different categories. One is how do you understand stage fright? And to counter that, how can you prepare yourself well? Second is, how do you deliver whatever content that it is that you have prepared? And the third is going to be, how do you listen carefully and how do you make sure that your skills to absorb whatever the other person is saying actually get enhanced? And as is the modality, I'm going to speak for the first 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll keep the remaining 10 to 15 minutes where I'll take your questions. Now, stage fright. First of all, you must know that you are not alone in it. Most people actually have this stage fright. Most people have the fear of public speaking. In fact, according to a research, it is the second most frequent fear after the fear of WFD, which is the weapons of mass destruction. So, after the fear of weapons of mass destruction, the second fear that most people suffer from is the fear of public speaking. So, stage fright has two contents. One, the moment the spotlight is on you, you start getting those butterflies in the stomach. And the reason, according to all the researchers, anthropological researchers, is that lack of preparedness is the key to stage fright, which means that it is your lack of confidence in your own preparedness, lack of confidence in the way that you think you're going to deliver whatever it is that you prepared, and the lack of confidence in your ability to communicate whatever it is that you wish to, which actually causes stage fright. So there are two things that you need to understand. One is that this is the root cause, and the second are the symptoms of stage fright. So symptoms of the stage fright would be that your throat is going to go dry, you might start sweating a lot, you might have shaking hands, you might have shaking knees in case you're standing up. So what we are going to do is we are going to address both the parts separately. The first part is about the preparation, how can you prepare very well, and the second part is about the delivery and the symptoms that happen when you're trying to deliver whatever it is that you have prepared. Now, in one of my earlier talks, I had spoken about communication, where we had defined communication derived etymologically from the Latin root communis as an exchange of messages between a sender and a receiver. And we said that the sender encodes a message and then, by using a medium or a channel, sends it to the receiver who then decodes the message. And therefore, the second thing that we had said was it doesn't matter how you are sending it. What is far more important is how is it being received. And therefore, the first thing that you need to do when you're preparing for anything that you're going to do on this stage, whether it's public speaking, whether it's attending a meeting, whether it's being a part of the conference where you might be a part of the group discussion, etc., is to do an audience analysis. Find out what kind of an audience, what kind of receivers do you have. Are they highly educated? Are they less educated? Do they like certain kind of a language? Are they comfortable with a certain kind of language? Are they not comfortable with certain kind of a language? Do they understand the technical vocabulary in case it's going to be a technical presentation, etc.? And thereafter, you try and make yourself ready and prepared for whatever it is that you're going to deliver. And in here, I'm going to give you a very important tip. Please note, I'm sure that some of you have seen the movie Drishyam, and one of the key things in the movie Drishyam was that people tend to remember what they have seen, which means the visuals are extremely important. So, whenever you are preparing a content, you must make sure that you prepare it in a visual form rather than writing a speech and then trying to mug it up, or writing the points and then try to mug it up. And here, there are two methods of visual representations with which you can actually prepare yourself. And I'll tell you the advantages of doing this visual representation. The one is the one that I call the hub and spoke model. So let's say you're preparing something to speak about a person. Let's say you're preparing yourself to speak about Gandhi. So you prepare yourself in this model, which is called the tree model. I'm not too sure if you can see it, but the tree model is where you put the heading there that you are going to speak about Gandhi, and then you are trying to create a content and prepare a content where you're going to talk about the life of Gandhi, Gandhi as a person, and then the philosophy of Gandhi. And this is called the tree model of visualization. This is also called the mind mapping using a tree model. The other model is a hub and spoke model, and preferably, I mean, personally, I prefer the hub and spoke model. Let's say you are trying to prepare a speech, you're trying to create a content on a place, and the place is Kanpur. So here you go. So you have this hub called Kanpur, and thereafter you say you are going to prepare something on the people of Kanpur, you're going to prepare the history of Kanpur, you're going to prepare on the culture of Kanpur, and you're going to prepare on the geography of Kanpur. So please note that both of these visualizations are equally good. All that matters is what do you prefer? I prefer hub and spoke. I don't know for any reason. I don't know what the actual reason is, but I somehow like hub and spoke. But if you like the tree model of mind mapping, by all means do so. Once you have chosen as to which of these two mind mapping methods are you going to use, then you start creating the content. And when you create the content, you must keep in mind these 7 points. Your content should necessarily address these 7 points. The first point is attention getter. Always start your speech, always start your group discussion, always start your contribution in meeting by coming up with the attention getter that actually attracts people towards you. If you're going to talk about Kanpur, say, I'm going to talk about a city which was once called Manchester of Northern India. And suddenly you have people's attention, and you must say it in a volume which is slightly louder than your normal volume. Or I'm going to talk about a man whose ideals are present even today and are perhaps more relevant than ever. I'm going to talk about Gandhi. And therefore, these are the typical examples of attention getters that you can have. The second is the purpose or the thesis of your talk. Please remember, you have to tell your audience, you have to tell your viewers, you have to tell those people who are listening to you as to why should they be listening to you. So for example, when I come up with these topics, I come up after doing an analysis, after talking to some of my viewers and asking them what is it that they would really want me to talk on in these sessions of mine. Or when you ask me questions in a particular session, I pick up some of those things and say, hey, I'm going to answer these questions in some other session. I'm going to address these issues in some other session. And therefore, you must ensure that you talk about why should people be listening to you. You should be listening to me talking about Gandhi because I think Gandhi is very relevant today. You should be listening to me talking about Kanpur because I think you can start an industry here. Depending on the kind of an audience that you have, you tell them as to what is the purpose and what is it that they are going to get out of this. The third is you must always create a preview of points. So, for example, whatever I've said over here, that I'm going to talk about Kanpur and I'm going to talk about the people of Kanpur, the history of Kanpur, the culture of Kanpur, and the geography of Kanpur. The moment you say this, there are those mental folders which open up in the minds of the people. I mean, what do you do when you want to organize things on your laptop, on your computer? You organize similar things into folders. And the moment you say that these are the four things that you are going to talk about, your audience opens those mental folders inside their minds. So that is the third part. The fourth part is you fill it up with your main points. And that is that if at all you are talking about Kanpur and if at all you're going to talk about people, you talk about these are the kind of people, these were the important people, these were the people who took part in freedom struggle, so on and so forth. If you're going to talk about, let's say, the final point, geography, we're going to talk about, let's say, the rivers in Kanpur, the mountains in Kanpur, or the hills in Kanpur, and the places which are extremely important geographically. So this is how you start creating your main points. Please note that it also helps you in another thing. Let's say you've been asked to speak on something for 30 minutes. When you go to that place, you're told, hey, we're very, very sorry. We are running short on time because my boss has to go. Now you have to speak for 15 minutes. More often than not, what people do is they tend to cram up the material that they had for 30 minutes in those 15 minutes. That's not done. Never ever do that. So, what you can do now is make sure that whenever you have created this mental map, you create this mental map in the order of priority. So, you say people of Kanpur is the most important, next is history, third is culture, fourth is geography. So now, if instead of 30 minutes, you have only 15 minutes, you say, I'm going to knock off culture and geography. I'm going to talk only about people and history. Or the sub spokes that you have created over here, you have the sub spokes. And that ways, you speak the material which you had deemed to be important any which way, but with the same clarity and taking as much time on those important issues. So the mental maps, the mind maps help you not only to organize whatever it is that you are trying to say or whatever it is that you're going to say, but it also helps you in addressing these contingencies if at all come on. Thereafter, you must have transitions, which means, let's say you are looking at a file in a particular folder. Now you want to go to another file in another folder. What do? You first close this file and then you open the next folder, which means that if you have finished speaking about the people of Kanpur, say, now that I have spoken about the people of Kanpur, now I'm going to talk about the history of Kanpur. What have you done? You have asked the audience to shut that folder when you have spoken about people, where you have spoken about people, and now open that folder where you're going to talk about the history of Kanpur. So these transitions actually help you in helping your audience in remembering whatever it is that you are going to say. The sixth step is the summary. So summarize whatever you have said in 2 or 3 lines. And finally, the seventh step is the final thought. You must always leave your audience wanting for something more. Please do not try to say too much, or please do not try to leave your audience where they think that now they know everything. Leave them with a thought so that they continue having a conversation on whatever it is that you have spoken. So let's say you are done speaking about Kanpur and you say, and therefore, the next time if you are in the state of Uttar Pradesh, do not forget to visit Kanpur. It is a must visit place. Or if you are talking about Gandhi, tell them Gandhi may have made mistakes in his life, but then, as people say, great people make small mistakes, small people find them out. Now, this is going to provide a food for thought. This is going to provide people for something extra to actually bring into their discussions. So, this is so far as creation of the content is concerned. And remember, once you create the content this way, using these mind mapping techniques, you will also remember them because these mind mapping techniques will stay in your head while you're up there on the stage or while you're sitting in that group doing that discussion or in an auditorium answering questions, etc., etc. The second part, as I said, you also have to deliver the content. And when you start delivering the content, whenever you are getting into the room, that is the time when the stage fright actually sets in. And the stage fright, physiologically, what it does is it creates extra acid in your body. It leads to secretion of extra acid in your body. And it is that acidity, extra acidity, which actually causes your throat to dry, which actually causes a lot of sweating, which actually causes your hands and your knees to shake. And therefore, what you need to do is you need to create an adrenaline rush. What do the boxers do when they enter the ring? They hit themselves. Come on, I'll do it, I'll do it. Likewise, whenever you are getting into a stage, whenever you are going to a podium, or whenever you are entering a meeting room, first of all, pump yourself up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. The second thing that you need to do is you need to have some auto suggestion cues and say, the moment I speak those words, I will become absolutely calm. I will own the stage. I will own the meeting room. And auto suggestion actually works. Those of you who have heard me live, you would know that I always start every talk of mine by saying a very good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen, or a very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason why I say this is because this is my auto cue. The moment I go up on the stage and I say a very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen, something goes inside my body, almost as if somebody has switched on something, and then I think that I own everyone. And more the number of audience, the more energy I derive out of them. So think of something which could be your auto cue. And the third thing that you need to understand is that just before you enter the stage, just before you go behind the podium, you need to calm your nerves. And therefore, do what in pranayam is called the Bhastrika pranayam. Take a couple of very deep breaths and then leave it out of your mouth. That will calm your nerves. The pumping, making sure that you have the cue in place, and the calming of the nerves will keep you in stead and in proper stead for at least 25 to 30 seconds. And that is the time you actually get those butterflies. After 25 to 30 seconds, those butterflies are settled. The second thing, drying of the throat. Make sure that before you get onto the stage or to an important meeting, half an hour before that, you drink a couple of glasses of water. And also keep some water next to you just in case that your throat gets dry. It could also physiologically go dry. You should have some water right next to you, and preferably warm water, because that actually helps you soothe your throat. You can also keep some green tea, some warm green tea. Make sure that it is not very hot, and certainly make sure that it is not very cold. If your hands are shaking while speaking, bring your hands together, press them against each other hard for 2 3 seconds, and then let them go. Your hands will stop shaking. If at all your knees are shaking, then when you do the Vrikshasana, actually pull your patella up, you pull your kneecap up. Do that, pull your kneecap up, hold it for 2 3 seconds, and then let go. Your knees will stop shaking. And finally, last thing, so far as delivery is concerned, most important problem, rather the thing that people find most problematic are these limbs of theirs. They don't know what to do with their hands. Should they put their hands in their pockets? Should they hold their hands this way? Should they just keep one hand here? Now, there are three things that you need to know so far as moving your arms is concerned. The first thing that you need to know is that to be effective, remember I spoke about kinesthetic communication? To be effective, you need to move both your hands. Many people move only one hand while they stick one hand to their sides. Please note that human beings are aesthetic and therefore prefer symmetry. The moment you move only one hand, you are actually breaking that symmetry, and therefore you must move both your hands. The second thing that you must remember is that you should never cross your eyes with your hands, because you actually make a connection with your audience through your eyes. And the moment you cross your eyes, you break that connection. And even if you break that connection for a second, you actually lose your audience. And the third and most important thing is that please remember your hand gestures have to actually add value to the words that you are actually uttering. Most people use hand gestures like this. For example, just watch this. I'm going to tell you about four things. The first thing is this, the second thing is this, the third thing is this, and the fourth thing is this. Now, your hand gestures are actually adding no value. They've got nothing to do with your message. Now, once again, listen to me carefully and watch me carefully. I'm going to talk about four things. The first thing is A, second is B, third is C, fourth is C, fourth is D. Now, because this is a complicated thing, I'm going to divide it into multiple parts, take each part and explain it to you so that you can internalize it. You see the difference? The second time, I have actually used my hand gestures to enhance my words. They are in line with my words. So this is so far as the delivery of the content is concerned. And the third and the final point is listening. You must listen very carefully to others. If at all you are in a meeting, if at all you are in a group discussion, make sure that you're looking and locking the eyes with the person that is speaking, and also make sure that you're not writing down everything that the person is speaking. You must make notes. There is an art note taking as well. You must make notes on what you have understood about the point that the person has made. Likewise, even if you are on a stage speaking to general public at large, make sure at the back of your mind you are keeping notes of the mental cues, of the non-verbal cues that the people are giving you. For example, if you see your audience getting a little restless, say something which is actually funny, bring some humor in. If you think that your audience is getting a little sloppy, make sure that you say something that actually brings them to attention. And this is where, once again, the mind mapping comes in handy. So, for example, let's say you had decided to talk about Gandhi, his life, and as a person. And you think that when you're talking about Gandhi as a person, it's not actually capturing the imagination of the person. You immediately shift to the philosophy of Gandhi. And you talk about how civil disobedience that Gandhi learned from Henry David Thoreau actually made a change to his life and also brought a change to this country of ours. So if you combine these three things, create great content, make sure that you deliver it while addressing the symptoms of the stage fright, and improve your listening skills where you're listening to understand, where you're not just listening, but you're also watching the body language of your audience and then incorporating it to make changes in whatever that you're speaking, you will actually get over your fear of public speaking and the fear public speaking and the stage fright that most people are afraid of. So I'm going to stop here and I'm going to take some questions now. Good afternoon, as usual, to everyone. You have many ideas, Sachin. You have many ideas, but hesitant before public and not able to deliver, which I know. So, one of the things, Sachin, you must always make sure is don't try to put too many ideas. See, the reason why I speak for 15, 20 minutes and I make only two or three important points is so that I can dwell on those points. And it also helps an audience to understand those points well and then have their doubts cleared. If I try to speak, say, 10 points in these 15 minutes that I have, how many minutes am I spending for each point? 1.5 minutes. I will not be able to explain. I will not be able to expound on any of those points. So, Sachin, make sure that you have only two or three points, but you explain them well so that people understand whatever it is that you're saying. And this is often a mistake that people make in group discussions as well, that they try to put in too many things. No, you don't have to try and put in too many points. You just need to make two or three great points on whatever topic it is that has been assigned to you. Yes, sometimes, Jay Krishna, sometimes during the interview, answers don't click within the stipulated time. As soon as interview is over, everything starts clicking within a minute. So the whole point is, please remember that in case you haven't answered a particular question, and at some later point of the interview, you actually figured out the answer to that question, once you are done answering the question that you have been asked, say, by the way, sir, or by the way, ma'am, what you asked me at that point of time, it has suddenly struck me that I do have a viewpoint. And here is a viewpoint. Do not hesitate to give an answer later if you had not answered it earlier. There's absolutely no harm or no problem in doing so. The hub and spoke model and the tree model, Parul, choose either of them. They are equally good. As I said, the only reason why I prefer the hub and the spoke model is because I've done a lot of work on it. Most of my preparations in my early days used to be by using this hub and spoke. Yeah, Vikram, that's a very interesting question. That how do you get over the stage fright when you're asked to get an award? As I said, there are two things that you need to do. One is have something that you create as an auto suggestion. Auto suggestion is something that you tell yourself every night. So every night before sleeping, say that the moment I say, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," I'm going to become the king of the world. I'm going to become the queen of this world. The moment I say, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," I am going to be supremely confident. Keep telling yourself this every night before you sleep. And therefore, even I know that people get a lot scared even when they are asked to go and receive an award, and you can see their hands shaking when they have picked up the trophy or picked up the award, or they're simply asked to say a thank you. Please remember your auto suggestion helps you here. So the moment you receive the award, you start with your auto suggestion. And even when you are giving a thank you speech, many people think that they don't need to prepare. Please note that's not the case. At least in the initial stages, if you want to be a great communicator, you must know everything. So even if it is a 1 minute long thank you speech, write it, mug it up. Write it and mug it up. Do it for 2, 3 times until unless the time you have reached where you can actually speak extempore. Please remember, speaking extempore is not easy. You need to practice. Those of you who have attended my sessions, you know that I use a PowerPoint. You would also know that I don't need to look at my PowerPoint. Whatever is there on my PowerPoint, I already know. The reason why I use a PowerPoint is because it creates a visual impact as well. So, Vikram, auto suggestion and preparation, even for a small thing. How to handle questions? Excellent question. Now, this question and answer session, that's an extremely important session, and many people get nervous over there. There are 2, 3 things that you need to remember so far as the Q&A session is concerned. First, if somebody has asked you a question, make sure that you repeat the question to the entire audience after paraphrasing it. Why? It does 2 things. When you paraphrase the question and repeat it to the rest of the audience, you also are ensuring that you have understood the question well, because sometimes we may not have understood the real purport of the question, and therefore the person who has asked you the question will immediately interrupt and say, sorry Himanshu, this is not what I really asked. This indeed is what I was trying to ask. So it does this, it clarifies that you have understood the question correctly, and second, it also makes sure that everyone else also knows what the question is. So for example, if I don't speak out the question and I assume that you people are also reading the chat box with the same speed that I am, and I start answering the question, most of you would be completely befuddled that what on earth is he really answering. And therefore the second thing that you ensure is that you make sure that everyone else has also at least understood, and if not understood, at least heard the question. The second thing that you need to understand is that whenever you are answering a question, don't start looking at the person who has asked you the question. Look at the entire audience in general. Because otherwise, what happens is that it becomes some kind of a debate, which may also turn out to be an argument between the two people, and you start losing out on the rest of the audience. So take the question from the questioner, look at the questioner while he's asking the question, paraphrase, speak it to the entire audience, and when you give the answer, make sure that you're giving it to the entire audience for long. And sometimes you may find people who are habitual questioners who may not really have a question. In that case, feel free to tell them that you have an excellent point over there, but I don't think it's going to be everybody's interest. So why don't we take that question during the tea break? And make sure that you fend off people who keep asking questions after questions or asking you something which is not very relevant. So this is how you can answer, this is how you can address a Q&A session well. Adrenaline rush would bring the opposite effect as compared to pranayam. Liaquat, you are absolutely right. So therefore, what I said, you have to do it in this particular order. First, you get the adrenaline rush. So I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And the moment you reach that door, you're supposed to enter the stage or you're supposed to enter the room. That is where you do the pranayam, 2 or 3 deep breaths, so that you calm down your nerves while the adrenaline is still on. So your calming down is for the nerves. And when you're talking about the adrenaline, you're talking about a different kind of a rush which is inside you. So you need a proper combination and a balance of these two, Liaquat. Sonia, so if you're on the stage and if you think and if you're anchoring and the question is if there is a joke going on in my mind which makes me smile, feel free to smile. In fact, you should always be smiling when you speak, unless of course you're giving an elegy, which means you're speaking at a funeral or in an occasion. which does not demand, or where you're not expected to smile. But even when you're talking, let's say on a funeral, and if you are recalling a memory that you have about the person, you may smile. The only thing is that the smile should also convey a bit of a sadness. And therefore, please remember that the art of speaking also includes the art of actually emoting very, very well. So, since I do not have the time to do everything in this particular session, perhaps I'll take another session on the art of emoting, which means how do you actually convey things through your facial expressions? How do you convey things through your tone and the tenor of your voice? But as usual, we have run out of time. So therefore, I'm going to stop here today. And as I can see that there are many, many questions, and I think I want to answer all of those questions, I will take another session. And as said, this time I'm going to focus not just on the body language, but also on how do you understand other people's body language, and also how to communicate by using the tone and tenor of your voice and the facial expressions. Meanwhile, I have another announcement to make. Since we are going to start the academic session soon, I'm going to get a little busy to be doing this every Saturday. So from the next time onwards, from the next month onwards, we are going to have this FB Live session every alternate Saturday. So I'm not going to meet you next Saturday, but I'm going to meet you next to next Saturday. And as usual, we are going to alternate between English and Hindi. Thank you very much for coming over and listening to me in my FP Live session, and for this beautiful interaction that I see over here. Stay home, stay safe, and even if you are working, going to your offices, make sure that you stay safe, stay healthy, and take very good care of yourself and the people around you. And specifically and especially, as I always keep saying, of those people who come from disadvantaged sections of the society. Namaste.